Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ETHR World Talent 4.0 Summit. And here we are discussing a absolutely relevant and very, very important topic of Gateway to Gen Z, resetting expectations and motivations for Talent 4.0. Couldn't have had a better topic, especially with the pandemic, as well as the workforce behaving very differently from earlier times. My first question, without much ado, I'd like to straight away start shooting. And the first question goes to Kishore. Um, please share three things that you feel Gen Z wants from the employers that are very different from Gen X and the millennials.
Thanks, Debjani, for the question. Very interesting question around Gen Z. When you think through about the motivations, aspirations of Gen Z, what stands out to me, as the research says also, is that Gen Z, firstly for me, is very socially conscious. Given the environmental issues we have been seeing of late, and that's really escalated to global level, they're very conscious. So that's something most of the corporates need to keep in mind when they pitch their corporate out at the campus or as an employer to the Gen Z population. That's one. Secondly, they are very digitally minded, digital natives, as we call it. Social media is the way they operate, and hence when we interact with Gen Z, you need to keep social media as one of your foremost tools to engage Gen Z. That also comes to me very clearly. Some of the given, again, for a Gen Z population is work-life balance. They take it for granted, almost like flexibility. Work-life balance is expected almost as if it's part of the deal. So organizations which do not have some of those practices need to think through if you keep it competitive for Gen Z. Also, most importantly, recently, given the privacy and some of those concerns we are hearing in the market or otherwise that have got escalated, that also becomes a concern. While they are very socially active, they also value their privacy. So one needs to also remember that privacy is also something that defines them. Interestingly, one thing I found common between a Gen Z and Gen X is that both need financial stability. And that's something I thought was interesting because Gen Z, when they were born, you have during those late or late part of this last century or early this century, you have seen the global financial crisis and the aftermath. As a result, people have been out of jobs, their parents have been out of jobs as they grew up. So financial stability does play an important role for Gen Z. While flexibility is very important, work-life balance is very important, but you also want financial stability, faster careers, and growth. So maybe some of these aspects stick out to me as I think of Gen Z.
Fantastic, Kishore, because I think you hit the nail on the head. They are a high aspirational group. They want things coming to them fast, but at the same time, they don't like people breathing down their neck. Gen Z is looking for a much more empowered environment than possibly what Gen X and millennials were always looking for. My next question, of course, goes to Sumit. And Sumit, with all your experience behind you, I'm sure you'll agree that when I say that flexibility will be a key driving force, for Gen Z, and workplaces are already taking the cue and challenging the status quo as far as new work formats are considered. How do you see that evolving in the next 2 or 3 years with respect to kind of a dual careers, gig economy? And we're also hearing terms like the digital nomads, who are going to be mastering the art of going from company to company and doing expert work for a given price for their work. So how do you see that trend evolving in the next 2 3 years?
Very interesting question. I probably first start with are we doing enough to understand what is the generation asking for? While we understand that there is a lot of focus around on flexibility and creating an opportunity for them to kind of put their view forward, there are two highlighted points that we are taking into consideration, which is quite evolving. One is around empathy and around bigger picture. While we say Gen Z would kind of have all the flexibility and social media, I think we need to step back and see why do they need there. They need people to understand, empathize with them. So I think, are we doing enough to empathize with them? Are we doing enough to kind of listen to them? I think that's the very fundamental aspect that we need to kind of consider from short to long perspective. And probably it will add up to my response to you on the gig economy question. Also, another thing that Gen Z is typically looking at is the bigger picture while they live the life by the day. I think somewhere or the other, we realize through a lot of surveys and satisfaction scorecards that uh, they they look forward to a bigger picture. And I think, are we creating those role models? I think is very important, and there is an opportunity because we have a lot of people with experience coming in the organization and working for years. Now, gig is not new. It goes long back when a lot of kind of HR professionals talked about it, that it's going to hit us and we need to kind of be prepared. I think it's not a new topic for us at Fujitsu. We pretty much aligned our policy even before COVID happened in terms of giving part-time working flexibility and in terms of kind of aligning to the aspirations of the upcoming generation. But I think the larger question for next 2 or 3 years, which is a differentiator, is the workplace. So I think a gig economy to me, for what it was about a year and a half back to now, is workplace. That's a dimension which has been added that we need to kind of consider. Most of us would deal with gig economy in terms of performance management, employment legalities, in terms of the benefits, which I think differ in a setup of a gig economy. But I think what we really need to now account for is what kind of a workplace are we creating for them, and can we take that element into our progressive plans. So to answer your question, Fujitsu is committed for making sure that we are contributing to the community, and our employees should feel very comfortable about that. And for them, while we kind of have the right benefits and opportunities, I think workplace for next 2 years will be a very important aspect. So to summarize your question within response, I think a dimension of workplace into the policies and procedures and benefits would be an underlining factor that we are very closely watching.
When we talked of gig economy earlier, as you rightly said, the focus was more on the individual and how the art was being practiced. But from there, I think we are now evolving to a space where we are looking at every dimension of workforce management and how the workplace should actually be designed to be able to give the right kind of an environment to this new kind of workforce. And you know that little sentence that you said, Sumit, it just struck me. Are we doing enough? I think that in itself is a topic which can be done to death and discussed at length when we talk about the new generation workers, because there's so much that's happening out there. Thank you so much. Lovely perspective. Kishore, I come back to you again when I ask you that please share some of the best practices that you see while hiring from campuses. How different is the onboarding strategy that is being practiced today for the younger lot from what it used to be earlier, let's say even 5 years back, when we used to be talking about traditional procedures? What do you see happening now?
I will maybe answer the second question first on onboarding. So DBS Bank, if you see our journey in the last 5 years, DBS Bank has now become synonymous for digital bank, actually digital bank of Singapore, the way we now look at ourselves, which essentially meant that we have been able to implement practices which incorporate digital. When I say digital, I'm talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how does that actually bring in practice into HR and into onboarding. That's the point we're discussing. So what we have done, maybe around 3-4 years back, we brought in AI tool called JIM, an artificial intelligence tool, which interacts with the campus students. So when you, as a campus student, apply to us, you go on to JIM, have a gamified, aspects of interaction happening. JIM will ask you questions, context-based questions to you, and these questions also are, some of them are psychometric, which will actually profile you, get your personality out, also understand your skills, strengths, and take the profile out for the final interviewer, right? And obviously this helps the interview time cut down from a 30 minutes to typically 8 minutes, so on and so forth. But the whole aspect of interacting with campus students is gamified. So that's something we have brought in. And what now on the part of onboarding we are doing is we are bringing gamification into every aspect of onboarding, wherein you're bringing a chatbot. So we have this 24/7 chatbot, which is again artificial intelligence, chatbot using artificial intelligence, not the regular chatbot which has a preset of questions. This chatbot uses the pre-experience interactions and use neural networks to improve the answers, and answers to the various students on various interactions, which actually guide them across the organization in terms of what career opportunities they can look for, what skill sets they need to kind of grow, develop as they want to go through those. So those kind of tools we have put in place, and these are all obviously mobile enabled, accessible from anywhere. And in general, onboarding for us, we ensure that onboarding experience as a customer journey, as an employee journey, as we call it, as we would prefer to call it, is consistent. Starts from the time we have started interaction with the candidate till 90 days after the candidate has joined the organization, which has human interactions, the managerial interactions, HR interactions, then obviously digital interactions. And this whole journey is continuous, ensuring that you have gone through the whole phases of your assimilation into the organization. So that's the maybe a long answer for the second question. On the campus interactions, clearly, as we discussed Gen Z in the past question, clearly it's established that they need high interactions, need to see faster career paths, always want quick feedback, given that you're used to everything on short scripts on whether it's Twitter or Facebook. You're used to the short interactions. You need quick feedback. So what we are doing is, while we use the traditional model of engaging our alumni to be ambassadors at the campus, but we bring in more senior management. We bring in regular interactions wherein we actually mentor some of the students across campuses and ensure that we showcase the fact that how fast careers can happen with our organization, and how digitally we are able to make their life enriched through upskilling and reskilling. So we give them the whole journey, a screenshot of what you can do within the campus experience, or the what you call project experience. When you do it with us as interns, we try and give them that taste. And we have seen it works miraculously, where Huzar has done internships with us, actually 100% have converted to our offers. So that's something we have been doing consistently, Debjani.
That's wonderful, because but I must admit that it must have been a bit of learning and unlearning for people in the organization to be able to master the whole scale, because it doesn't come easy, and digitization is something that people have taken very easily and very naturally. Thank you, Kishore. And my next question is again to Sumit. Uh, this is not only with respect to Fujitsu, but also to the industry per se, to the aspect we could talk about. How has your hiring strategy really evolved with virtual, in the virtual space? Since the candidates, today are not coming to your offices, you neither have the benefit of a fancy office or to showcase a very smart and erudite hiring team. So you don't have those traditional ways of really creating the pull for the candidates. Therefore, when you need to really attract Gen Z, what kind of an employer branding activities and what kind of initiatives that are you putting in place today?
Debjani, we are a technology company, and technology is at a forefront of even in our hiring strategy. So, while we understand that our channels and mediums have been more digital than physical, but I think we haven't seen a major challenge in terms of attracting talent, of course, by the brand, and the value that we bring on the table for employees for their career. Now, in general, if I would speak about industry, and in general, if I'm going to speak about what we are doing in last couple of months, I think we went back and did something known as an EVP, Employee Value Proposition. So Fujitsu, at a regular interval, does look internally and ask all the new joiners, people who are tenured, about what is the brand, how do you feel about the brand, because the brand inside is something that will then reflect outside and make it culture. So I can do nice marketing collaterals, but if I'm able to take the voice of the internal employees to the potential employees, we will get like-minded people who would like to kind of work in that culture. So I think that's our forefront of our strategy of communication, and platform is digital. So we've recently came up with our 5 promises through the employee value proposition. Things like do the right thing, you're trusted to deliver, working through your way, very positive statements. And we have gone out with these statements on our career websites and others, and we've told people that we want to empower you in your role to deliver. to what you want to achieve and how you can co-create with Fujitsu as an organization for the customer. So I think our strategy from a hiring perspective has been that we have looked at the employee value proposition, converted some very relevant promises to people and say, this is what we breathe and live. And on those promises, we have attracted talent. Now, on the technology front, there are great platforms for assessments, uh, video chats, and various platforms, which I will not get into detail because those are now hygiene. And gone are the days when you're just talking about a digital interview. I think that's a must. But I think where we are now maturing is, are we able to do an heart-to-heart connect with an employee or a potential employee, saying that, look, we are creating an organization with like-minded people who want to be inclusive, want to bring a difference, and these are our people promises, and that's what we do. And trust me, I will not exactly put a number on the table. Most of the organizations would move typically from a 70 to 75% offer to join ratio today to 50 to 60. I mean, that's reality on recruitment. But at Fujitsu, we are still kind of maintaining a really good level. And I think that is an output of the brand, output of the promises, and connecting with the right audience than just kind of going on various social media and just trying to convert. Because reality of it is, we need to have the right people for the right skill get matched. We just don't want to go volume, we want to go quality.
It's so heartening to actually hear large scale stable state organizations like Fujitsu, take recourse to us EVPs and redefine the EVPs, because until very recently, there was a debate about how relevant is EVP at the end of the day in this new reality. And I'm so very happy to listen to you, Sumit, because I'm a staunch believer that you don't really need to throw out everything, all your thought processes when the paradigm shifts. There is a way to redefine the same thing rather than reinvent. Thank you. That was a wonderful question. Now here's a question which I'm addressing to both of you, and any one of you can pick it up. We've been hearing that the need for STEM skills has really gone up in the recent past. Have you had what have been your experiences about hiring for STEM roles? Has that been a problem, or has it been smooth going? Is there any abundance in the market? I'd like to have your perspectives.
So maybe I'll take a quick shot at it and hand over to Sumit for his views. So we do hire in good numbers for STEM roles at our global technology hub at Hyderabad, where we have some 3,000 plus employees working and growing. The typical challenge we have seen while we hire for STEM roles is that while diversity is a big challenge for most organizations, particularly gender diversity, in STEM roles we actually have seen that maybe the intake itself we find a gender diversity as a big issue. We are as an organization pretty much focused on the quality and the diversity of candidates and significantly gender diversity, and we have seen that as an issue. That's one. Two, again, while we have enough pool available, again, the quality of the talent for the kind of roles we're talking about, the deep tech roles we're talking about, right, is a little bit of there is still a gap. So while we bring in the best of the raw material from these campuses or from the for the STEM roles from the open market, we still feel that there is a need to further upskill and bring them up the curve with respect to digital and the deep tech knowledge.
Thanks, Kishore, Debjani. I think Fujitsu is a very inclusive organization. I would not be able to add a lot in terms of my comment on STEM, because I think we drive very inclusive behavior. It is growing. The need is growing. It's all demand and supply. Our real focus is that when we get these individuals in the organization, how we enable them to grow and deliver to the organization or customer mandate. That's important. I think whether it's a STEM skill or there are various other skills that we look into the market, it totally depends on the customer need and the kind of business we do. But if we are able to create an opportunity for people to kind of deliver to the customer mandate, I think that's where our focus is. So I will be able to, unfortunately, just share a little light around on this. But as an organization, for us, we are very inclusive and we would not differentiate between these kind of roles.
Fair enough. I think that in itself is a very relevant insight into how Fujitsu works. Kishore, my question to you now. Gen Z's social habit at the end of the day are very quirky. Okay, they may have 100 plus friends. Okay, on social media, but many of them avail texting. Then, texting comes first to them rather than speaking. So there
Yeah,
seems to be a natural hesitation to even pick up a phone and talk. Given that work from home is the new normal, would that make this generation incompatible, uncollaborative, and aloof during team meetings and project implementations? I mean, basically, what are we talking about? We're talking about collaborative skills, negotiation skills, communication skills. Would those be a casualty given the kind of behaviors that we are seeing at the with the Gen Zs today?
Thanks, Debjani. Interesting question. With Gen Z, yes, you are right when you say that it's a lot of chat and text and lots on social media. But when you rightly, as you rightly point out, in an organizational context, you need collaboration, negotiation, and other social skills. But again, you need to also see what the generation values. So I think the way I'm looking at it is that you need to provide flexibility, flexible working models, flexible organizational practices. So when I say that, you obviously are going to provide a lot of this on a bite-sized learning or bite-sized interactions, but also a flexible work model. Like for example, at DBS, we said that even after the pandemic ends, we are going to ensure that our workforce will work 40% of the time from home or our satellite offices, whichever is convenient to you. It's a permanent policy we have kind of announced at our organization. So that gives you flexibility. But we are also saying that, remember, 60% you still need to come into the office. You need to come into office for training programs. You need to come into office for various activities, interactions, celebrations, town halls. You need to be there because we need you there to understand the culture. Culture can't be built sitting at home. So we are saying that, yes, flexibility is yours. We will give you, but we still want you to be part of the organization. We want you to, be with us, understand the culture, grow with us. So that's the message we give. Having said that, we also have kind of customized many of our interactions to suit the needs. Somewhere I've read that almost 20% of our Gen Z or Gen X tend to kind of not choose organizations as a preferable employer if there is no flexible arrangement, right? And also another data point I've somewhere figured out is that if you reduce the interaction, or for a simple example, like filling a job application, you cut the time by 10%. In filling the application, the research says that almost 3% more responses or applications are coming in. So it all has to be bite-sized. So keeping those insights in mind, our interactions with Gen Z employees, which will be, as I said, flexible from home, from satellite offices, and sometimes in office, needs to be bite-sized, customized, and meeting the requirements so that you have a great experience, and at the same time, also come into office to experience the culture. That's the way we are looking at it, Debjani.
I think that's a very, very prudent approach. There's no point in jumping at it and trying to make too much out of it. You've got to be slow, steady. And I think taking a cue from what Sumit had said right at the start of the program, empathy has to play a very big role in
Yeah.
trying to understand what really this generation is all about and how do we really approach them. Just to cue, one of the things that I'm hearing from all parts is there seems to be a gap in both managerial and leadership competence of sheer listening, which is so important in the current context. We've become so physically tuned to having our teams around us and giving instruction based work orders that today, when we have most of our teams actually not with us and sitting in remote locations, we find it very difficult to spend that much time even listening to what they're going through. So when we talk of quirky behaviors, we have to start first with the basics. How do we really reach out to them so that we can bring them around to what we understand is going to be their participation in culture building? To bring up the rear of this session, my last question to Sumit, and this is again about something about preferences that Gen Z is supposedly demonstrating, which is rather than very large hierarchy-based organizations, even if they are big names in themselves, Gen Z seems to be preferring agile, small, petite, niche organizations, which have more broad-based opportunities for exposures of different kind, project exposures, involvement in multiple tasks, that kind of collaborative working, and a lot of chaos, a lot of method out of madness, as we call it. That's the kind of environment that they're looking forward to, rather than actually work in very hierarchy and very stringent, straight-laced organizations. What's your take on this?
Uh, Very interesting question. I think we should learn from a lot of organizations. We at Fujitsu do. I think it all boils down to a very simple thing: inclusiveness. Why are they going to a smaller organization? Why are they talking about agility? Why are they talking about uh, the Spotify's of the world today? Is because of the fact that they want to be listened, they want to participate, they want to kind of have uh, an inclusive culture. So I think a large organization of our scale are listening to that, and we're listening to customers for years. So things like creating a co-create culture is not just with customers that we sit and co-create a solution. We also do with our employees. So I think we need to acknowledge, appreciate, and learn from a lot of new companies and their style, that we need to be inclusive. And I think that's an underlying message that I started my whole conversation with you both about. Um, I also, at the same time, feel slightly, and it's a slightly different view, and it's been given by data, is that we don't feel that employees are disengaged. Our glid scores, which is our kind of employee engagement, say they're pretty engaged. I mean, we are in the 70s plus percentage of participation and 80s percent. They are engaged. I think the important point is, are we looking at scores or are we looking at comments, what they're writing? And at Fujitsu, what is critical for us is comments. So when you say we need to listen to them, I think large organizations of our scale can't just kind of listen to everybody every day. I think, are we creating mediums through performance management conversations very regularly, check-ins, performance check-ins, or employee satisfaction comments? Are those opportunities for us where we need to kind of start engaging our human resources team, uh, our employee assistance partners, counselors, managers, to see the trend of people? While I'm very appreciative of data and doing analytics and doing a predictability, but an emotion of an individual can be read and understood, and a conversation can then kind of convert into a stay interview. So I would say that I will still go back to the very human centric approach, which is the very basics of not just expecting them to kind of listen, but also, are we doing enough as an organization and management team to listen to them? Are opportunities on the table? But rightly said, the workplace is evolving. Till about 1.5 years back, you would pay a lot of attention on the call and you will sit over there for an hour. Now your listening skills are so improved that you're on a call and you're grinding something in a grinding machine and you're still listening. So as human beings, we have evolved. And what we really need to do is that, are we listening for listening, or are we hearing? So I think those are some differentiating factors. But trust me, for me, dealing with my 8-year-old son, my in-laws who are in late 60s, and my wife, they all three react the same way when I'm talking to them, looking at their app and just kind of responding with some kind of a gesture. So I think for me, there is no generation largely gap. It's our ability that, are we talking to them about the WIFM, what is in for me, why should I listen to you, what is the benefit? So I think those are the few small things we need to be careful with, but also say we are evolving as social animals, that a grinding machine and a call still work in a very collaborative space for us today.
Beautifully answered. I think that had to be the rounding up answer for the day and the discussion today. Thank you, Sumit and Kishore. I think in the short time allotted to us on for this fireside chat, in this ETHR World Talent 4.0 Summit, we must have brought certain insights into what Gen Z is all about. Now, there's a lot that we still need to discover, by the way. And as Sumit and Kishore both rightly pointed out, we're still in an evolutionary stage. We ourselves are learning and unlearning as we speak here. And I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming in place even as we go along. Thank you so much, both of you, for spending time. And I had a wonderful time moderating the discussion with you. Thank you.